at first she didn't really want to, but she decided she will go because why not? Why not try something new? The workshop was quite expensive, so maybe that's why I didn't exactly look at any tutorials, because I thought, well, the lady will just teach me there. Why would I, spend more time looking up tutorials? Which was my mistake. And I only looked at actually people creating things, but not really talking about how they're creating these things, if that makes sense. So yeah, no tutorial. I thought that if I will make a mistake, or if I was about to make a mistake, somebody will warn me, right? They will tell me, you shouldn't do it like this. In the email that I received, there were a couple of instructions, but there was, I actually checked, there was one important sentence, and that was that you should bring one, I repeat, one pattern that you want to make. So let me show it to you. I wanted to create a rose. The concept was like this. It was inspired by a different stained glass rose that I saw, but I drew this myself. Yeah, the rose like the rose from Beauty and the Beast, or the Little Prince, like that was the concept, but that it would be blue. So I actually even did these colors, like I wanted to see which colors, like darker or lighter, would look best, right? But I only had one pattern that I brought because it was in that email. Wait, actually I'm going to show you the photos right now. So here is me with that pattern, that one pattern that I brought to the workshop. As you can see, I'm very happy. I had my hair in a ponytail because I was leaning over the entire day, and my hair would just get in the way. So I'm very happy, right? I will also show you what I've created. This was a photo still at the workshop. Are you ready for this? If you follow me on Instagram, again, you know what's coming. You've seen that disaster. So 3, 2, 1. Oh, it's so bad. Things went wrong. Very wrong. So let's actually talk about what happened. But wait, I'm also going to show you the final product and how I tried to fix it. Because yeah. So this is the final product. It's not that bad. If you put it against the window, it's actually kind of nice. I'll show you a photo of it. But this story is quite good, which is why I want to tell it to you. So here is my little rose of all evil. The photo that I showed you, the second one, it kind of looks like it's an artifact that came straight out of hell. I mean, it looks possessed. So let's talk about what has happened, because this was a disaster, if you may. So at this workshop, there were 7 ladies. how you shouldn't. And I'm thinking to myself, gosh, like if my artwork would be here, I would feel kind of bad, right? Like especially if you're just a beginner and this is your first time attending a workshop, and then your bad art work, can you call it that? I don't know, your bad creation is being shown to hundreds of others later. I don't know, I was feeling a little bit off there. But next, the lady showed us how to cut glass, but we only used translucent one for the first time, and I was quite good at cutting the glass. It wasn't that bad. I just grabbed it and I cut it in half. But because it was the translucent, one thing that I've realized that the more opaque the glass is, the harder it is to cut. So although I was quite good at cutting the translucent glass, when we actually got to the colored glass, the more opaque ones, it was a different story. Next, we cut up our own paper patterns. We put them on the glass. We drew around the shapes with a Sharpie, and that's when you were actually supposed to cut the glass, which was just so much more difficult to do. And also, if you look at this, there's not a single like straight cut, right? It's I kind of chose perhaps a wrong shape to start, because I've heard that if you only do straight cuts, that it will not hold together. Because I was also thinking about creating a dagger. Gosh, I should have chosen the dagger. So yeah, this was like super difficult to do, especially the top pieces, which are from non-see-through glass. Like they're completely opaque, extremely difficult to do. You can't even see it because we'll get to that, what happened. But this part, this wait, copies of the pattern, and then I would simply draw 2 copies of the pattern, like simple as that. So finally I found it, I sent it to her. She's just like, what's the size? I told her that I printed it as A4 paper, just like a simple A4 paper, right? Like you don't have to do any resizing. She's like, no, I don't think so. Great. So then we spent 20 minutes trying to print out this stupid second pattern, which finally she realized that it's actually just a simple A4, size, like you don't have to resize it. By that point, I was already super late. Everybody else was grinding their pieces. I didn't even have proper cuts of my pieces. So I came back finally with the pattern. I tried cutting the pieces again. Some of them, because now, here's the thing, the second pattern was slightly different, so now I had to redo some of the glass pieces. Everybody else was already like doing something completely different. I wasn't. So then I go and I try to grind the pieces at this grinder, which I'll show you how it looks like usually. Again, none of us were wearing gloves when we were cutting the pieces, which sometimes if you had a bigger piece, like this for example, that was fine. But then I had these tiny pieces as well. And guess what happened? Oh yeah. So I brought some of the pieces from the 2 grinders. Oh, that was another thing. There were 7 of us. There were 2 grinders. Every time I went away from the grinder, somebody else replaced me immediately. So then I had to wait and wait and wait, and then finally I could go again. And then I had to wait and wait and wait. This lady has been doing the courses for 20 years. Why don't you have more grinders? God damn it. So it was a mess, because I could see that the pieces were not fitting together. So I would take a Sharpie and I would redo the shapes. But then I brought it back to the grinder. The water at the grinder immediately washed it off. It was a mess. My fingers started to be like blue from the Sharpie blue and black. So at some point when I was cutting the tiny pieces, I brought them back to my desk and I looked down. I'm like, why is there red color? And then I look again and I see that the entire rose is red. Oh yeah, I've cut myself at the grinder pretty badly. And at first I thought, oh, it's fine. I just had a tissue. There's this finger right here. I had a tissue and I thought it would be fine. And after a couple of minutes I realized that it was in fact not fine. Luckily, I have band-aids on me all the time. Thank God for them. So I take the band-aid, I run into was just like, well, some people have it in the eye, and some people just they're good right away, blah blah blah. And I'm like, you can't be serious. I don't like this approach, first of all, because there are probably 5 other things that I can do right away that she could not, right? That's one thing. Second thing, gosh, I'm getting mad again. If that would be my approach, I would get nowhere in life. I really, really hate that approach. And now I was starting to be really irritated. Because, and also, let me tell you something. Okay. The lady also showed us some of her artwork. Okay. If I had 20 years of experience in stained glass, my pieces would not look like that. Okay, oh no. They would be hanging at the nearby cathedral. Like, don't piss me off. Now, of course, I wasn't really saying anything to her, but deep inside I was just like sitting at the desk. Alright, I have to calm down. This is an ASMR video. Gosh, I'm reliving the experience. It was so bad. Then you have to take copper foil and you have to wrap each piece in this foil. This is for soldering. Now, there are only 2 copper foils left. One was extremely thin, and as soon as I started wrapping the pieces, I knew that I will get scolded that it's not thick enough and blah blah blah. The second copper foil was really thick one, and so I chose the really thick copper foil. And I knew as soon as I wrapped the pieces, I knew that I've made a grave mistake. I knew that it's not going to look good. I also want to show you a photo. When I prepared the pieces, I left tiny spaces for the copper foil, which is how you're supposed to do it. I think the lady didn't like that, so she grinded all the pieces again so they would fit perfectly together without the copper foil. However, when I've put on the foil later, as you can see, none of the pieces fit together anymore because the foil pushed the pieces apart since there was no room for it. There were gaps everywhere. This is not how it's supposed to look, and I was so upset. At that point, it was too late in the day. I could not redo it because at that point probably some of the copper foil, the right size was available, right? Because others were using it. Again, why isn't there enough right size copper foil available at this workshop? So I knew. I just knew that it's going to look awful. But I was like, screw this. Then you solder the pieces together. You get hot soldering iron. You take tin and you just solder the pieces together. So I did that. At first I didn't even have a proper soldering iron because guess what? There weren't enough of soldering irons. So again I had to wait. Then I finally got the right size one. Cool. I soldered the pieces together and I absolutely hated it. I truly hated it. I was like, gosh, that's so bad. I'll show you a picture right now. So finally I decided to take black patina and I'll just apply it and it's going to turn black, which what it does is that it oxidizes the tin and it turns black. And I thought Rose of Evil. I mean, this looks this looks possessed. Yeah, this looks like it was created by demons in, like, I don't know, hellish fire or something. So I couldn't even wash it properly because the patina wouldn't really dry out. I don't know what was happening. So the lady looks at it and she's just like, well, she said, this is what she said. Early on in the conversation, I said that when I was little, that my mom would take me to a bunch of her art classes, which is true. Later, when I was talking to my mom, she said that, well, I remember it wrong, I guess, but she said that we only went a couple of times, and specifically she mentioned that we are supposed to dye a scarf, but that you could only dye half of the scarf, and that there weren't enough colors for everybody in that workshop. Why didn't she tell me before I signed up for this? Maybe she thought it would be different, I don't know. So anyways, back to present time. So she says that if I showed my mom this creation, that she would think it's awful and she would never want to go there ever again. Joke's on her, my mom doesn't want to go there ever again either, but which again, like, what? So here's what she did. She found somewhere a steel sponge and she decided to rub off the black patina so that it would look grey. If it looked bad before, it looked awful now. Oh my goodness. I'll show you a photo right now. So here's how it looked when she took that sponge. And after that, I just took the rose of all evil and I left with my friend, which my friend actually had kind of a good time, but she was laughing so much. I mean, I was laughing when I left because I just thought to myself, what the hell was that? Never again, never again. So I went home and I decided that I will buy the black patina and I'm going to revert it to its original black form, which is exactly what I did. I actually bought a patina and I painted over the entire thing, and this is why now it looks black. The black patina actually hid a lot of the imperfections, which is why I decided to do it. When that lady used the steel sponge, you could see all of the imperfections again. It was horrible. Now, I didn't know that the lady took a photo of it as it looked like this, by the way. It's awful creation. Horrible. I hated that. I preferred the black color. Anyways, so I didn't know, but she took a photo of it. My friend told me that she took a photo of it. So I just know that for the next generation ahead, for the next workshops, I just know that she's going to show my poor Rose to everybody else and being like, oh, this is how you shouldn't do it. Which makes me feel a certain type of way, you know? Well, at least it doesn't look like the grey, horrible version anymore, which makes me feel a little bit better, but still, like, she took a photo without my consent, and that kind of, she didn't even ask. That's what's like bothering me, because if she asked, I probably would have said yes, but she didn't ask. She just decided to take a photo and, like, the hell. Anyways, so that was that. Never again. Never again. I see, and then also my friend didn't want to leave, you know, so I stayed, unfortunately. But yeah, never again. The thing is, I don't know, I actually would like to maybe in the future try it again. The thing is, first of all, there aren't any other workshops for this nearby. This was the only one. So I would have to buy all the equipment myself, and I don't think that's really feasible at the moment. I don't think it's the right time. We'll see. Maybe I'll change my mind throughout the year, but this was an experience, 100%. At least I tried. I mean, yes, I've made a lot of mistakes, but why didn't you stop me? Perhaps this is what's bothering me, right? So this was a workshop for total beginners. I have made a lot of mistakes. The lady didn't correct me, and instead of stopping me and actually teaching me, she only took photo of my mistakes at the very end so she could show it to others. That is what is truly like bothering me. So yeah, never again. I actually originally thought about attending other workshops for the oil painting, for example, or I don't know, there were other things available there, but no, I'm not going to this lady. Absolutely the fuck not. Yeah. Anyways, in the end, I actually kind of like it. It has its own charm. To be honest, everyone's else's artwork was pretty much the same. This one stood out. Oh, this one was totally different from the others. Right? And I don't know, it has its own charm. Like, yeah, it looks dystopian. It looks like it was made in hellfire. But perhaps there's a certain amount of skill that you need to turn a beautiful rose into something so evil looking, so depressing. But now, I mean, on camera it doesn't look that bad, or at least that's what I'm telling myself. It's fine. Who cares? It's different. Yes, it's different, but it's not that bad. Who knows? Perhaps I'll become a renowned stained glass artist in a few years. Probably not, but never say never. At least I would learn from my mistakes, you know, and that's important as well.